What is up, everybody? Mr. Curtis here. Welcome to the Cold War, 1945 to 1991. If you've never learned anything about the Cold War before, it is not called the Cold War because it was cold outside. I saw someone write that on an essay once. Please don't write that. It's called the Cold War because the two sides that this war is between, which is the United States, symbolized by Uncle Sam here, and the Soviet Union, symbolized by a bear here, which is the symbol of the Soviet Union, the two sides never actually fight each other. They compete with each other. There's nationalism against each other. They don't like each other. They're angry at each other, but the two sides never fight. And since they never fight, it's called being a Cold War because the two sides are not actively engaged in fighting with each other. So this period called the Cold War, again, like I said, there's two sides. There's the Soviet Union over here. There's the United States over here. Both sides are really competing between two things. Now, keep in mind, the Soviet Union is communist. The United States is democratic, and we have for the most part, a laissez-faire or hands-off free market economy. We don't like them. They don't like us. They want to try and spread communism throughout the world. We want to try and spread democracy and free market economies throughout the world. And we are going to compete with them. And when I say we, I mean the United States are going to compete with them over a period of almost 50 years. And I want to focus on this. There's two things really: who can get more weapons, who can build more nuclear weapons and more tanks and more submarines, and who can have better technology. That's one way we're going to compete. The other way that the competition is going to happen is who can get more countries on your side. And I want to start with this second one first, and then the weapons we'll do kind of another video and some stuff in class. But here's the deal. After the war is over, and by war I mean World War II, they got to figure out what to do with Germany. And they're going to hold a trial called the Nuremberg Trials. Now, remember, the Nuremberg laws Nuremberg is a city in Germany, and the laws are where the segregation laws against Jews first took place. They're going to hold a trial in Nuremberg after the war is over, called the Nuremberg Trials. Basically, they put the highest ranking Nazi leaders on trial for what they call crimes against humanity, meaning that what they did was so horrifically awful, it was a crime against human beings and human nature. This is the actual, at the trial, these are the defendants. These are the highest ranking Nazi officials, people who knew about the concentration camps, people who ran the concentration camps, and all 22 of these people are going to be found guilty. All 22 of them said, I was just following orders. I was told to do this, and since I was told to do this, if I hadn't, I would have been killed. And the international community, which is going to be the one who holds this trial, find them all guilty and said, you can never use that as an excuse that you're just following orders. So all 22 of these guys are going to be found guilty. Over the next couple decades, more Nazi officials are going to be put on trial. Still to this day, every once in a while, someone is discovered that worked in the camps. There was just someone a couple years ago found in Michigan. So this is not uncommon, although most of the people who were part of the camps and part of the Nazi regime have since died, because we're talking from the 1940s. So also, after the war is over, we need to rebuild Germany. We just bombed the heck out of it for 2 years straight, pretty much. So we got to rebuild it. So in order to avoid the problems from World War I, where countries were mad that they didn't get everything they were promised, we're going to split Germany up. And basically, Germany is going to be split in two. It looks like four up here, but it's really two. So we're going to have the western half of Germany is going to be run by democratic countries, which is Britain, France, and the United States. So they're going to pretty much take control of this western half of Germany. So there's going to be Germany is going to be split in two. The western half is going to be called West Germany, and the eastern half of Germany is going to be called East Germany. East Germany is going to be this part right here, run by the Soviet Union. So there's now going to be two Germanys, West Germany and East Germany. And this capital city, which is right here, check it out, this little piece right here is the capital city, which is called Berlin. Berlin is also going to be split into two, between the western half and the eastern half. The western half, just a little preview, is going to thrive. It's going to be industrialized. It's going to be in good shape. And the eastern half doesn't. And the eastern half is going to kind of remain behind. But there's going to be two parts to this. In the process of splitting Germany in two and Berlin in two, there's going to be a wall created in Berlin. And this wall becomes the symbol of the Cold War. The wall, this is the western half. This is the democratic side. This is the eastern half, the non-democratic side. The goal of the wall was to keep people from leaving East Berlin to go into West Berlin, and to keep people from leaving the totalitarian communist side and to go into the democratic side. This wall becomes kind of a symbol of the Cold War. It shows the two different sides, and it's going to remain standing until 1989, and we'll eventually get to that as well. So just a couple things about the wall. It's really hard to cross. You have a border, you have a wall fence here, anti-car trench, you have areas that make it so tanks can't come through. You have obstacles and crackers, and you have some like wire crackers that make it so if you trip the wire, it sounds an alarm. You got patrol cars, you got rabid dogs, and then you got to cross a wall and a wall. It's really hard to cross, all while you got someone pointed down with a gun at you right here. Some people do get through. Generally, walls aren't successful at keeping people out or in. People find a way around it, tunnels, holes, areas in the wall that aren't protected. So people are going to try and sneak through, and sometimes people successfully get out of East Berlin, the communist side, into the democratic side, but generally it doesn't happen. It doesn't work very well. Also, besides East Germany, there's going to be other. Here's the deal. The Soviet Union comes in and overthrows the Nazis and pretty much gets to this point right here. The Allies, the British, the French, the United States, pretty much get to here. When the war is over, the Soviet Union soldiers just don't leave. They stay there. And they pretty much turn these countries that have been conquered by the Nazis into communist countries. And there's an imaginary line here separating the democratic countries over here and the communist countries over here called the Iron Curtain. It's not a real curtain. It's not really made of iron. There's no wall here. It is imaginary. It's a fake line that just is the border between the two sides. But this side is democratic. This side is communist. There are 6 countries that are communist here. These countries are called satellite countries. They have to answer to Stalin and the Soviet Union. So Stalin basically puts specific people in power in each of these countries, and these countries are now going to become communist. So communist countries on the east side of the Iron Curtain, non-communist on the western side. The US's goal is to contain communism. You can't stop them. You can only hope to contain them. You want to try and contain communism. So make sure communism doesn't spread any further than where it is. So what we need to do is we need to make sure these countries on the border don't turn communist. Like a container, you want to put something in the container to keep it from leaving or going bad. So the goal is for the United States is to keep communism from spreading. We don't want any other countries to turn communist. So we're really going to focus on these 2 countries down here, Turkey and Greece. And one way the United States does it is they give money to these countries. And this is called the Marshall Plan. Some terms here. Make sure you write these down and understand this. The U.S. is going to give money, give economic aid to European countries, specifically Greece and Turkey, to make sure they don't decide to go communist. So how do we make sure these countries don't ask the Soviet Union for help? We give them tons of money, and then we make sure their economy is strong. And if their economy is strong and people have food, people are happy. And if people are happy, they won't turn to communism and go through revolution. Makes sense? So one thing we're going to do is give them money. The other thing we need to do is we need to protect them. And there's going to be 2 alliances that are going to be formed. One is called NATO, which has been in the news lately, especially with the recent presidential election, which stands for North Atlantic Treaty Organization, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, which is between Western European democratic countries. So they all say to each other, if you're ever attacked, we all have your back. So the United States, it's North Atlantic because across the Atlantic Ocean this way is the United States. And then in response, the Soviet Union forms the Warsaw Pact, which is between the Soviet Union, the USSR, and all of their satellites who are communist countries. So the Soviet Union says, if West Germany ever attacks East Germany, all of these pin countries will help out West Germany. Similar to the World War I stuff that we talked about, where there's these alliances to make sure no one invades anyone else, and we keep it, we make sure we protect everybody. So these are the alliances. Last but not least, not every country joins in the Cold War on one side or the other. A lot of countries stay neutral. The neutral countries are usually called non-aligned countries. When you're aligned with something, you're together with them. When you're not aligned, you're separate. So some countries say, we want no part of this. And most of them are countries that were colonized during imperialism. So like, for example, when India gets their independence, they're like, dude, we want nothing to do with you anymore. Like, you do your thing, we'll do ours here. Some countries are like, we'll take money from the Soviet Union and we'll take money from the United States and we'll kind of play both sides off each other. But non-alignment means neutral. That's what I got here. A lot of terms, a lot of different ideas. Make sure you write this stuff down. We'll kind of go over it more in class. As always, any questions, let me know. Intro to the Cold War. You got it? Good.